The first snow had fallen quietly that Christmas morning, blanketing the neighborhood in soft white, as if the world had pressed pause to listen. Behind the frost-covered windows of his modest house, James sat in silence, nursing a cup of lukewarm coffee, haunted by memories he couldn't shake. The weight of years of mistakes pressed on him like the cold wind outside, the kind of mistakes that linger longer than snow. That's when he heard them, soft, trembling voices calling from the frost-lined fence that separated his yard from the neighboring home. "Please, fix it like you fixed Mama's heart," the twin girls pleaded, their breath fogging in the cold air. James froze, his chest tightening, heart thudding painfully against his ribs. He hadn't seen these girls since the divorce, hadn't spoken to them in years, and yet their eyes held a desperate trust that made his past regrets feel heavier than ever. In their small, mittened hands, they clutched the shattered pieces of a porcelain music box. Its delicate ballerina figurine snapped at the ankle. It was a gift from their mother, Sarah, a relic from a happier time. The same Sarah he had once promised to cherish forever. The divorce had been a brutal storm, tearing their shared world apart. James had retreated into himself, building a wall of silence and regret, while Sarah and the girls moved next door, a constant, painful reminder of his failures. He hadn't just lost a wife, he'd lost a family. The silence between their homes was deafening, a chasm of unspoken words and unresolved pain. He hadn't realized how much he'd missed their voices until now. Their plea wasn't just about a broken toy. It was an echo of a time when they believed he could fix anything. He remembered fixing their mother's heart, or so they thought. After a terrible argument years ago, he'd found a broken locket of Sarah's and painstakingly repaired the delicate chain. The girls had watched, wide-eyed, believing he possessed some sort of magic. To them, he hadn't just fixed a piece of jewelry. He'd mended their mother's sadness. Now, looking at their hopeful faces through the icy air, he felt a profound ache. How could he tell them that he was the one who had truly broken their mother's heart in ways no glue or solder could ever mend? He took a deep breath, the cold air stinging his lungs, and pushed his own door open. "Come in," he said, his voice hoarse from disuse. "Let's see what we can do." The girls, Lily and Mia, scurried inside, their boots leaving melted snowflake patterns on his floor. They sat at his cluttered workbench, a place where he'd once built dreams but now only tinkered with broken appliances, a metaphor for his own life. The scent of sawdust and oil filled the small space. As James examined the fragile porcelain pieces, he saw more than just a broken toy. He saw his shattered promises, the fractured trust, the delicate hope of two little girls who still wanted to believe in him. He worked carefully, his hands, usually so steady, trembling slightly. Lily and Mia watched in silence, their chins resting on the edge of the workbench. "Mama cried when it broke," Mia whispered, her voice barely audible. "She said some things can't be fixed." The words struck James like a physical blow. He knew Sarah wasn't just talking about the music box. He continued his work, meticulously applying a tiny drop of adhesive, holding the pieces together until they bonded. He felt their small, innocent eyes on him, full of a faith he hadn't earned. It was a heavy burden, but also, strangely, a lifeline. For the first time in years, he felt a flicker of purpose beyond his own self-pity. He wasn't just fixing a music box. He was trying to glue back a piece of their childhood, a piece of their belief in him. An hour passed in near silence, broken only by the hum of the refrigerator and the girl's soft breathing. Finally, the ballerina stood whole again, a faint, almost invisible line marking the break. He gently wound the key. A tinkling, familiar melody filled the room, the same tune that had once filled their family home. Lily and Mia gasped, their faces lighting up with pure, unadulterated joy. "You did it!" They cheered in unison, their smiles radiant. "You fixed it." At that moment, the back door of the neighboring house opened. Sarah stood there, wrapped in a thick cardigan, her expression a mixture of surprise and concern. She saw her daughters in James's house, and for a second, her face hardened. Then, she saw the mended music box and the looks on her children's faces. Her posture softened. She crossed the snow-covered yard, the space that had felt like miles for so long, and stepped into his doorway. "Mama, look, he fixed it," Mia exclaimed, running to her and holding up the music box. Sarah looked from the toy to James, her eyes searching his. The years of anger and hurt were there, but beneath them, James thought he saw a glimmer of something else. Something he thought was long gone. "Thank you, James," she said softly, her voice holding a warmth he hadn't heard in years. It was just a few words, but they were more than he had hoped for. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet. But it was a start. A crack in the ice. It was nothing, he mumbled, though it felt like everything. On that quiet Christmas morning, surrounded by the scent of pine and the lingering melody of a music box, James realized that maybe some things, even things broken for a very long time, could be mended. Not perfectly, perhaps. The scars might always remain, faint lines showing where the pieces were once shattered. But they could be made whole again. He looked at the twins, then at Sarah, and for the first time since the snow began to fall, he felt a warmth spreading through his chest that had nothing to do with the coffee. It was hope. The melody played on, a fragile but persistent tune in the quiet of the morning. A promise that this was not an ending, but a new beginning. The first step on a long road back to family, guided by the simple, unwavering faith of two little girls. That evening, as the Christmas lights twinkled across the neighborhood, James found a small, clumsily wrapped gift on his doorstep. Inside was a hand-drawn card from Lily and Mia. It showed a stick figure of him with a superhero cape holding a bottle of glue. Below it, in a child's scrawl, were the words, "To the best fixer in the world." Tucked inside the card was a photograph he hadn't seen in years. It was of the four of them, taken on a summer day long ago, all laughing, a moment of happiness frozen in time. A single tear traced a path down his cheek, but this time, it wasn't a tear of regret, it was a tear of gratitude. He looked across the yard to Sarah's house where the lights glowed warmly. He could see their silhouettes moving behind the curtains. He raised his hand in a small wave, not even sure if they could see him, but then a light flickered in their window once, twice. A signal, a response. He knew the path ahead was not easy. Repairing trust was far more complex than fixing porcelain. It would require patience, effort, and a willingness to confront the painful truths of the past. But for the first time he felt ready. He was no longer haunted by the man he used to be, but inspired by the man his daughters still believed he could become. The snow continued to fall, covering the old tracks and laying a fresh, clean slate. It was a Christmas he would never forget, not for the gifts or the decorations, but for the broken music box that helped him find the missing piece of his own heart. It was the day he learned that the most powerful magic isn't about fixing things that are broken, but about having the courage to try and the love to guide your hands. It was the day he started to rebuild his world, one tiny, hopeful piece at a time. He stepped outside, snow crunching softly beneath his boots. He looked down, and there they were. 10-year-old Lily and Emma, identical in almost every way, yet each carrying her own quiet sorrow. They stared up at him with a kind of hope he thought he had long forgotten how to recognize. In that single moment, memories flooded back, swift and overwhelming. The first time he held them so small and fragile in his arms. The sound of their laughter echoing through the halls of their home, a sound that felt like it belonged to another lifetime. And then the day their mother's heart broke, and his own life unraveled right alongside hers. They had seen it all. They had witnessed the fracture, the slow, painful healing, and the heavy silence that followed. And now, on this quiet Christmas morning, they were asking him to repair what had been broken. To finally step into a role he had avoided for far too long. James felt his voice catch in his throat. I don't know if I can, he admitted, the words barely a whisper, more to himself than to them. But then, Lily's small, gloved hand pressed against the cold wooden fence. A moment later, Emma mirrored her, their eyes shimmering with an innocent courage that could pierce through any armor of regret. "You fixed her heart," Lily whispered, her voice so soft yet so clear in the winter air.
"Please."
"You can fix ours, too." The words, so simple, so pure, yet loaded with a universe of emotion, cracked something open deep inside him. It was like a door he had sealed shut with guilt and shame had just been blasted open. He realized in that instant that the walls he had built around himself weren't protecting him anymore. They were isolating him from the very people who mattered most in the world. Snowflakes began to settle on his shoulders, each one a gentle reminder of the present moment. He knelt down slowly until he was at their level, meeting their gaze. "All right," he said softly, his voice finding a steadiness he hadn't felt in years. He let a flicker of hope seep into his heart, warming him from the inside out. "Let's fix it." Together. He followed them as they led him into the small, snow-dusted yard. But as he walked, James knew this journey wouldn't be easy. Healing is never a quick fix, and the wounds in a child's heart, he knew, ran deeper than any others. He would have to confront the mistakes of his past, face the deafening silence that had stretched between him and their mother, and prove once and for all that love, even a love that had been broken, could be mended. This Christmas morning wasn't an ending, it was just the beginning. The path to mending his family started with something small, almost trivial. It was the Christmas tree, or rather the lack of one. In previous years, the tree had been his wife Sarah's domain. She would spend days picking the perfect one, her eyes sparkling with excitement. After she got sick, the tradition just stopped. The silence in their home grew louder each December, a constant, unspoken reminder of what they'd lost. This year, James had bought a small, artificial tree, hoping it would be enough. But as he looked at it now, tucked away in a corner of the living room, undecorated and bare, he saw it for what it was, a half-hearted attempt, a symbol of his own avoidance. Emma, always the more observant of the two, seemed to read his thoughts. She walked over to a dusty box in the corner, the one labeled Ornaments. She didn't try to open it. She just stood there, looking from the box to him. Lily joined her, her expression a mirror of her sister's quiet plea. They weren't just asking for a decorated tree. They were asking for a piece of their mother back, a piece of the joy she brought to this day. Taking a deep breath, James crossed the room and knelt beside them. His hands trembled slightly as he lifted the lid. Inside, nestled in faded tissue paper, were years of memories. There was the lopsided clay snowman Lily made in kindergarten, the glitter-covered star Emma had crafted, and the delicate glass angel that had topped their tree every single year. Sarah had bought it on their first Christmas together. He picked up the angel, its surface cool against his skin. For a moment, he was transported back to that day, to the warmth of their tiny apartment, the smell of pine needles, and the sound of Sarah's laugh. A wave of grief washed over him, so powerful it almost knocked him off balance. He wanted to close the box, to put the memories away, to retreat back into the safety of his numbness. But then he felt a small hand on his arm. It was Lily. She didn't say a word. She just squeezed his arm gently, her touch a lifeline. He looked from her to Emma, who was now holding the clay snowman, a faint smile on her face. They weren't afraid of the memories. They were embracing them. Your mom. She loved this one, James said, his voice thick with emotion as he held up the glass angel. She said it watched over our family. Emma nodded. I remember. Slowly, one by one, they began to unpack the ornaments. With each one, a story was unearthed. James found himself talking about Sarah, not in hushed, sad tones, but with a warmth he hadn't realized was still there. He told them about the disastrous first Christmas dinner he tried to cook, and how Sarah had laughed so hard she cried before ordering pizza. He told them about the year they brought the twins home from the hospital, how they'd spent the whole day just watching them sleep under the twinkling lights of the tree. The girls listened, captivated. They added their own memories, small, fragmented images that became clearer as they spoke. Lily remembered sitting on Sarah's lap, helping her hang the shiniest baubles on the lowest branches. Emma remembered the scent of cinnamon and cloves that always filled the house, a scent she hadn't realized she'd missed so much. For the first time in years, the house wasn't silent. It was filled with stories, with gentle laughter, and with the soft clinking of ornaments. As they worked, a transformation occurred. The bare, sad little tree began to glow with life. It wasn't just a tree anymore. It was a testament to their shared history, a beacon of their enduring love. When they were finished, they stood back to admire their work. The glass angel sat proudly at the top, its delicate wings seeming to catch the morning light. The living room felt different, warmer, brighter. It felt like a home again. James looked at his daughters. Their faces were illuminated by the colored lights, their eyes shining not with sorrow, but with a quiet contentment. He realized this was the first step. Fixing their hearts wasn't about grand gestures or impossible promises. It was about showing up. It was about being present. It was about opening a dusty box of ornaments on Christmas morning and sharing the stories held within. He reached out and pulled them into a hug, burying his face in their hair. He could feel the steady beat of their hearts against his chest. They were here. They were together. And for the first time in a long, long time, James felt like a father again. He knew the road ahead was still long. There were more silences to fill, more wounds to tend to. But as he held his daughters close, surrounded by the glow of their rediscovered memories, he felt a profound sense of peace. This was more than just decorating a tree. This was rebuilding a family. One ornament, one memory, one shared moment at a time. The snow continued to fall outside, blanketing the world in a quiet hush, but inside, something new and hopeful was beginning to grow. The crunch of snow under my feet was a constant, sharp reminder of the years I'd let slip away. Ahead of me, two small figures, the twins, trudged through the yard, their little mittens a splash of color against the white landscape. They led me to a small wooden bench under the old oak tree, a silent witness to so many family memories, both happy and sad. Emma, the quieter one, tugged gently at my sleeve. Her voice was soft, barely a whisper against the winter air. "Sit," she said. I sank onto the cold wood, a chill seeping through my jeans, but it was nothing compared to the icy ache in my chest. Emma and Lily exchanged a glance, a silent communication only twins seem to possess, before speaking in unison. Their words, trembling with a raw honesty that only children can deliver, hit me with the force of an avalanche. "We miss Mama," Lily admitted first. Her gaze was direct, her young face etched with a maturity that shouldn't be there. "She's happy now. But we feel broken too. And we don't know how to be okay without her sadness touching us." I closed my eyes and the memories rushed in. Their mother, my sister. Her smiles that never quite reached her eyes. The nights I heard her crying silently in the room we once shared as kids. The countless times I promised I would fix things, only to find myself speechless, helpless. The weight of my past failures pressed down on me. Now, years later, her daughters weren't just asking me for help. They were offering me a chance to finally make things right, a chance at redemption. My voice was rough, thick with unshed tears when I finally spoke. I want to help," I managed to say, "but it won't be magic. Healing takes time and it's messy. Sometimes even adults don't know how to fix things right away." I felt like a fraud offering guidance I myself had failed to follow. Lily leaned closer, her wide, innocent eyes searching mine for a promise I wasn't sure I could keep. "We're ready to try," she said, her voice stronger now. "We'll help too. Just don't give up on us." I swallowed hard, the lump in my throat almost choking me. The responsibility felt immense, like the heaviest snow-laden branch of the old oak threatening to snap. But beneath that weight, something else flickered to life, a spark of purpose I hadn't felt in years. For the first time since my sister's heartbreak, since the family had fractured, I felt a glimmer of hope. Maybe, just maybe, I could be more than just the man who watched from the sidelines as life happened to everyone else. Over the next few days, I dove headfirst into the world of the twins. It was awkward at first, like learning a new language. But we started small, building new traditions one day at a time. Morning cocoa by the fireplace became our ritual. The warmth of the mugs seemed to thaw the ice that had settled in our hearts. We started storytelling sessions, sharing memories of their mother's happiest moments, her infectious laugh, the way she used to sing off-key while baking, the funny stories she told about our childhood. We took long walks through the snowy park, where the silence was slowly, tentatively replaced by laughter. I learned that Emma expressed herself through art. She started drawing pictures of our family, not as it was, but as she longed for it to be full of warmth and smiles. Lily, who had been so quiet, began to share her worries and her dreams aloud. Her voice grew steadier with each passing day, each shared secret, each moment she felt heard. But I knew this was only part of the solution. The real test, the one I had been dreading, was still ahead. I had to reach out to their mother. The thought of reopening old wounds, of facing the past I had run from, was terrifying. But looking at the hopeful faces of my nieces, I knew it was necessary for their healing, and for mine. I made the call. It was one of the hardest things I've ever had to do. At first, my sister was wary, her voice guarded, and who could blame her? But as I explained, as I told her about the girls, about the light returning to their eyes, she started to listen. She saw the sincerity in my actions, the change in her daughters, and something shifted. Slowly, we began the conversations we had avoided for years. There were apologies, tearful explanations, and most importantly, there was forgiveness. It wasn't a single dramatic moment, but a series of small, painful, and ultimately freeing steps toward understanding each other again. By the time Christmas evening arrived, the house felt different. It was filled not just with the scent of pine and cinnamon, but with a genuine warmth and laughter that had been absent for far too long. The tree sparkled, its lights reflecting in the children's eyes, and I felt a sense of peace I hadn't known in years. It wasn't the peace that comes from a perfect life, but the kind that comes from the courage to face the mess and try again. I watched as Lily and Emma hugged their mother, their smiles wide and real. In that moment, they were mirrors of hope, resilience, and the incredible power of love. I finally understood that fixing broken hearts was unable erasing the past or having all the right answers. It was about showing up, being present, and letting love, in its imperfect and patient way, guide you forward. That Christmas I learned that even the most shattered things could shine again, if tended with patience, courage, and a willingness to mend what was torn apart. As the snow continued to fall outside, blanketing the world in a pristine, quiet white, I felt a deep, quiet joy. In helping to heal the hearts of these two little girls, I had started to heal the broken fragments of my own. For the first time in what felt like a lifetime, I believed in the quiet, transformative magic of love. I realized that sometimes the greatest gifts don't come wrapped in shiny paper and vows. They come in the simple, profound act of showing up for the people who need you most. And that, I've learned, is a gift you can give not just to others, but to yourself as well. Thank you so much for watching and for being part of this journey. If this story resonated with you, please consider subscribing. We'll see you in the next one.